Good morning, candidates. Last week you wrote your paper 1, Business Studies, and this week on the 25th you'll be writing your paper 2. Remember, last week you wrote on 2 topics in Business Studies. You wrote on business environments and business operations. So for this week's exam, we are supposed to prepare for business ventures as well as business roles. So that indicates that for your preparation this week, you focus only on those 2 topics, your ventures and your roles. So get all your resources together. Most importantly, get your examination guideline and sit tight so that I can assist in terms of your preparation. So what is the presentation going to be about today? Let us look at our scope. We are going to look at the entire topics. We are going to look at the ventures and outline all the aspects of work that you are supposed to cover. And then we are also going to look at your business roles and those subtopics that each and every learner is supposed to deal with in preparing for the roles. So we are also going to look at some of the commonly assessed topics. And here be careful that we are not only focusing on the topics that I'll be alluding to this morning. But as we look at our examination guideline, I will show you the importance of preparing each and every aspect of the work as prescribed by the examination guideline. So if I present and I give you some of the commonly assessed topic, you must know that it's just for us to be able to show you the mistakes that are commonly made and also to make recommendations and suggestions as to how you can prepare for those topics. We are also going to look at how essays can be approached because we still have many learners that struggle with essay writing. So that will be the topic and all the aspects that we'll be doing today. I am Gaungalelwe Mama Khuatsintsing from Sihunelo Secondary School, and that is your presenter, and that will be me with you today for the time that will be looking at the paper. My contact details are 082-451-3265. I'm a subject teacher of business studies at Sihunelo Secondary School, and my email address is gaungalelwe.t@gmail.com. So if you would like to get into contact with me, you can do so using those contact details. Let us now look and focus on the scope as far as the 2 topics are concerned. We have the first main topic, which will be your business ventures. Business ventures comprises of management and leadership. It also comprises of investment. The investment would be broken into 2 subtopics, which would be securities or opportunities, as well as insurance. We have forms of ownership with special focus on how they can contribute to the success and failure of a business. We also have the 5th topic, which would be presentation and data response. So for your ventures, you are supposed to work on those 5 subtopics. That will be your leadership and management, investment, your securities, investment, your insurance, forms of ownership, and presentation and data response. For your roles, we are supposed to prepare ethics and professionalism, creative thinking and problem solving, corporate social responsibility, corporate social investment, human rights, inclusivity and environmental issues, team performance. So I hope you are able to see that the 2 topics, 2 main topics are broken into 5 subtopics each. And that is what I want us to look at now. With your leadership and management and leadership, look at your examination guideline, because there are important aspects that we need to remember And as you work through this topic, don't only rely on the previous question papers, but it is important to consult and use your examination guideline together with your question papers so that you can be able to ensure full coverage of all aspects as far as leadership and management is concerned. We are supposed to elaborate on the meaning of leadership and management. You should be able also to distinguish between management and leadership. You are also expected as a learner to be able to outline the differences or differentiate or distinguish between the following leadership styles. So you must know your democratic, you must know your autocratic, your laissez-faire, you must know your charismatic and transactional leadership styles. So it is important for you to work on those. Many learners would just focus on the two that are commonly known, democratic and autocratic, and then ignore the rest. Work through all those 5 leadership styles and be able to differentiate between those styles. And the other thing that the examination guideline requires you to do would be to identify the very leadership styles that we have just indicated. You must be able to identify them from the scenarios. When a case study is given or a scenario is given in the question paper, your knowledge of each and every style should be able to assist you in terms of identifying the leadership style that is mentioned in the scenario. You must also be able to evaluate and analyze the impact, meaning that would be your positives and negatives of each leadership style. You must be able to say the democratic leadership style, the advantages and disadvantages. So all the 5 leadership style must also be dealt with in terms of their positive as well as negatives. And please, learners, do not forget to also work on your last bullet, which would be the application. Remember, you learned to distinguish between the styles. Remember, you also have to learn the impact, your negatives and positive. But you must also know the application. It means, when can this leadership style be best used? When can they be used successfully? So your preparation on the management and leadership topic does not only end in terms of advantages and disadvantages, but it goes further with you understanding how to apply those leadership styles and how they can be used in enterprises to ensure that the enterprise achieves successful results. And then you must also work on the theories. Remember, we have just alluded to the styles, and now I am touching on the theories of leadership that you must know. You must understand the first theory of leaders and followers. You must know your situational leadership. You must know your transformational leadership, and then your transitional leadership theories. So you will see that it differs on how you are supposed to prepare it from what we did in our management and leadership. Because with theories now, you are supposed to explain the theories. You are supposed to explain the theories. You don't have to prepare impact, because the examination guideline does not require you to do so. So with theories, you need to be able to explain those different theories. And many learners also make the mistakes of confusing theories with styles. So it is important that you take your time, you work on it, so that you are able to separate the two. You are able to understand what the leadership styles are and what the leadership theories are. Last 2 parts of management and leadership would be, you must be able to discuss the role of personal attitude in successful leadership. You must be able to do that. You must be able to say the attitude of the leader, whether positive and negative. But here, because we are touching on successful leadership, it means you will always have to indicate positive attitude that would land the enterprise into success, because the leader will be leading the enterprise successfully with the positive attitude that he will be having. And the last part of the management and leadership that you must prepare would be your leadership attitude, the type of attitude that the leader must have, or that the leader must assume. You must be able now to be able to identify it from the scenario that will be given, so that you can be able to from what you have read, whether in the case study or in the scenario, to be able to say which particular attitude is displayed in that particular scenario. So work on those aspects. So do not only focus on what I will be touching on as far as the previous or the commonly asked questions is concerned, but you must also always be able to touch on all aspects to ensure thorough preparation for your leadership and management topic. So that will be your first part of the ventures that you would have to prepare for. Then we have the second part, which would be your investment. So we are just going to run through the examination guideline so that you can remember when you sit down to prepare, what aspects of work are you supposed to work on, so that you don't skip the other work and disadvantage yourself on Wednesday. Make sure you work on all aspects of each topic so that you can be able to be ready as far as your examination is concerned. So your investments are broken into two, as I've already indicated. We have your securities, or what we can refer to as opportunities, and you have your insurance. So those are the two that I quickly want us to look at in terms of what is prescribed in the examination guideline. With investment securities, we are supposed to discuss the functions of the JSE. We are supposed also to investigate a range of available investment opportunities that are available for business. We must outline, state, describe, or discuss the factors that should be considered when making an investment decisions. What are those factors? Remember, return on investment, that is your ROI. You have your risk. You have your investment term, meaning the period of investment. You have your inflation rate. You have your taxation, your liquidity, your personal budget, and your investment planning factors. So those are the considerations that a business would have to make before they can choose an investment opportunity. And then also you have to look at the volatility of your investment in terms of its market. It means you look now at the fluctuations that would be in the market and how they are going to affect your investment, so that you can decide to take a risk or not. And then you must also be able to explain and discuss the various types of investment opportunities. For example, fixed property, stokvels, managed portfolios, and venture capitals. There are a lot of opportunities that are available for businesses. So it is important that you prepare each and every one of them, and you must now know how to be able to explain or discuss those various types of investment opportunities. You must also be able to explain the risk factor of each investment opportunity as you prepare for your securities, as you prepare those opportunities in terms of your discussion and your explanations. You must now also include in your discussion the risks that are associated with each and every opportunity that is available for the business. And you must also now be able to analyze or discuss or evaluate the positives and negatives of the following. So only 4 of all the opportunities that are available for businesses would now have to be extended in terms of now your studying, because now you have to work on their impact. So you are supposed to look at your government retail savings bonds in terms of risk, in terms of explanation or discussion, but also you must now be able to know the positives and negatives of investing in government retail, say RSA retail savings bonds. You must also include the unit trusts in terms of advantages and disadvantages. Remember, you have already done your explanation. Remember, you have also done your risk that would be associated with this different investment opportunities, but now it is also important for you to do your advantages and disadvantages for shares as well as for the fixed deposit. So these four investment opportunities should now go beyond a discussion and the risk, because now learners or candidates are supposed now to include their impact. And then we have the next one. Remember, I indicated to you earlier that the investments are broken into two. We have your securities, that would be opportunities that are available for businesses, but you also have now insurance, meaning businesses are supposed now to look after their assets. So what is it? The initiatives that are going to be taken and put in place by businesses to ensure that they protect themselves against any eventuality that may take place, and that would result in them losing whether their assets or money in the long run or in the short space of time. So we are supposed now to look at what you are supposed to prepare in terms of the insurance. You must know the meaning of insurance, what insurance is. But you must understand that insurance is also broken into two. We have types. We have non-compulsory insurance as well as compulsory insurance. So as you prepare your investments, and with special reference to your insurance, you must understand that as you prepare, you must understand the meaning of non-compulsory insurance. You must elaborate on the meaning of the following insurance concepts that I will read out now for you. It's over insurance, under insurance, average loss, and reinstatement. So those are the insurance concepts that you are supposed to deal with as you prepare for your insurance. And then you must also explain the difference between over insurance and under insurance, and be able to distinguish or differentiate between insurance and assurance, and provide examples thereof. And then you are supposed also to give examples of short-term and long-term insurance, and explain or discuss the following principles that I will also indicate to you now. The principles of insurance, which are indemnification or indemnity, security, which is also referred to as certainty, utmost good faith, and insurable interest. You must also be able to apply the average loss to calculate the compensation that the business would get in terms of under insurance. And then explain also the advantages and importance of insurance for businesses. Explain the meaning of insurance and insurable and non-insurable risks, and then you give examples of those insurable and non-insurable risks. That would be for your non-compulsory insurance. But what is it that you need also to prepare for your compulsory insurance? You must be able to elaborate on the meaning of compulsory insurance as much as you have elaborated on the meaning of non-compulsory. You must also explain the types of compulsory insurance. That would be your unemployment insurance fund, road accident fund, road referred to now as road accident benefit scheme, compensation for occupational injuries and diseases fund, which is your following under the Act of COIDA. And we must also explain the types of benefits that are paid out by insurance, known as UIF, Unemployment Insurance Fund. And then you must also identify the types of compulsory insurance from the scenarios that will be given in the question paper. So as you prepare, as you understand in your preparation the meaning of these different types of compulsory insurance. You must also now be able to use that knowledge to identify these different types of insurance from the scenarios that will be given. And you must also be able to explain or differentiate or distinguish between compulsory and non-compulsory insurance and provide examples of those insurance types. And then it is expected of you to keep abreast of the changes in legislation from time to time, because the examiner can, just want to find out how much do you know about the changes that are taking place, the latest development in legislation that affect the insurance. So it is important for you to know and keep yourself informed, and so that you can be ready for such questions. So when you have done that, it means you would have prepared for your investment and opportunities, investment in terms of your securities as well as your insurance. Then the fourth topic falling under the business ventures would be your forms of ownership. So what is it that we are supposed to prepare? Remember, the forms of ownership, the special focus here would be on how they can contribute to the success and failure of a business. Now let us look at what the examination guideline requires of you. You must be able to explain the characteristics of each form of ownership. Remember, the forms of ownership were introduced to us in grade 10. We also worked with, in our grade 11, we also dealt with them. And now, in grade 12, we are expected to be well conversant with those characteristics of each form of ownership. We must be able to know and explain the meaning of limited liability and unlimited liability. We must be able to discuss or explain or evaluate the impact, that would be your positives and negatives of the different forms of ownership. So for each and every form of ownership, you must know your characteristics. You must also know the advantages and disadvantages, because it is important for you to understand the characteristics and advantages and disadvantages, so that you can be able to do your evaluation. The learners or candidates would not be able to evaluate any form of ownership if they do not understand the basis of those forms in terms of the characteristics, and from the characteristics we derive the advantages and disadvantages, and therefore we will be able now to evaluate the contributions in terms of the success and failure of each and every form. And you must also now be able to discuss how the criteria that I will now mention to you would contribute to the success or failure of each form. The criteria would be the capacity, tax implication, management, capital, division of profits, and legislation. So it means we have now 6 points there. We have 6 criteria that we have to look at as far as the forms of ownership are concerned. And for each and every form of ownership, you must now be able to evaluate it in terms of capacity, which would be referring to the ability or the potential of management to start and operate a business as planned. And remember, capacity is closely associated with capital that the business would be able to raise. You must also understand the implications of tax as far as the choice of form of ownership that you have made. And you must also understand the management, the type of ownership that you are choosing in terms of the impact that it will have on management functions. And then you must also work on capital, meaning is the form of ownership that you have chosen put you in a better position to be able to obtain capital from various sources. and then division of profits. How are the profits going to be divided, and between the owner or between the shareholders, and how is that contributing to the success and failure or failure of the business. And lastly, legislation. So we must now look at the legal requirements for starting that particular form or business, and then the impact that it will have in terms of costs, and time before we can actually start with our operations. So those are the parts or the criteria that we must be able to work on. That is why I indicated earlier, candidates, that it is important for you when you work with your forms of ownership to start with your characteristics, know your forms, know the advantages and disadvantages of each form, but also be able to use the information that you have acquired from your understanding of the characteristics and your advantages and disadvantages to evaluate that form of ownership. The last part of the ventures, remember I said the ventures comprises of 5 topics. The last part of the or the last topic of the business ventures would be your presentation and data response. What is the examination guideline requiring of each and every aspect of a data response and presentation? We are supposed to discuss the factors that must be considered when preparing for a presentation. We must also explain the factors that must be considered by the presenter while presenting. And also we must be able to identify factors that must be considered when preparing for a presentation and during the presentation, from the scenarios that will be given in the question paper. Remember, you start by understanding the factors or that you need to prepare when you are going to present, meaning that is the before. Sometimes they are referred to as before, or sometimes they are referred to as factors to consider when preparing. So it is important for you to understand that, you know, the presentation and data response is broken into 3. You prepare, you present, that is your during, and then after the presentation. So it is important for learners and candidates to know those 3 and be able to separate. Many learners make the mistake of confusing them. If a question requires them to discuss the factors that must be considered during, they include the factors that must be considered when preparing, and lose a lot of marks in that regard. So it is important that in your presentation you understand that your presentation has your before, it has your during, and then we also have the after, so that you can place your facts right and you score a maximum points in this particular topic. And you must be able to explain how to respond to questions about work and presentation, meaning how to handle feedback after a presentation. Remember, I have already indicated the before, the during. Now, after the presentation, you must now know how to handle the feedback in a non-aggressive and professional manner. That will come after you have presented. And then you must be able to explain or suggest areas of improvement, so that whatever is given by your audience in the feedback session, you apply it in the next presentation, so that your presentation gets better and better every time. And then your data response, you must be able to explain how to design multimedia presentation. And then you must be able to give examples of non-verbal presentation, like written reports, scenarios, types of graphs. You must be able to explain, discuss, and evaluate the impact, meaning that would be your positives and negatives of each visual aid. and then you must analyze the effectiveness of each visual aid. So when you refer to effectiveness of the visual aids, you are going to be referring to advantages or disadvantages of the visual aids that would be used by the presenter when presenting information of that. And then identify visual aids from the scenarios or the statements that will be given. And then that concludes our ventures. Remember, I said it has 5 topics: management and leadership, investment, your securities and opportunities, your insurance, forms of ownership, presentation, and data response. Now let us look at the second topic. Remember, candidates, we are still busy with our scope. Business roles now. What aspects of work are we supposed to cover as far as the roles are concerned? We are supposed to look at ethics and professionalism, creative thinking and problem solving, social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and corporate social investment, human rights, inclusivity and environmental issues, and team performance. These 2 topics comprises of 5 subtopics each. The ventures I've just indicated have 5 subtopics, and your roles also have 5 subtopics, which would be your ethics, your creative thinking and problem solving, your social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and social investment. And then you'll have your human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues, and your team performance, assessment, and conflict management. Now let us look at what we are supposed to know as far as ethics and professionalism are concerned. Remember, the most important guiding document for you as a learner would not be your question papers. Your question papers are there to assist you in terms of looking and knowing how to approach or how examiners approach questions, but also it assists you in terms of understanding how you are supposed to approach your responses. But the most important document that will ensure full coverage of all aspects of work that you must know, that will ensure that you are ready for your examination, would be your examination guideline. So I would not go through this presentation without indicating to you what you are supposed to know as far as each topic is concerned, because sometimes learners would just pick and take a few subtopics from each topic and think that they are ready for writing the topic. It is important to use your examination guideline, which will assist you in terms of saying, yes, I am ready to write this particular topic. Ethics and professionalism. What is it that learners are supposed to know? You are supposed to be able to define or elaborate on the meaning of ethical behavior. You must be able to give practical examples of ethical and unethical behavior. You must be able to elaborate on the meaning of professional behavior, give practical examples of professional and unprofessional behavior, outline the differences, meaning you are supposed to differentiate or distinguish between ethical and professional behavior, and also explain how businesses can apply King Code principles. Remember, we used to do many principles before, but this year and last year they were reduced to only 3. So we only focus on the 3 principles of transparency, accountability, and responsibility for good corporate governance in order to improve ethical business conduct. We must also be able to recommend or suggest ways in which professional, responsible, and ethical and effective business practice should be conducted. For instance, payment of fair wages and others. And as a learner, you must also be able to identify the unethical business practices from the scenarios, meaning the different types of unethical business practices that would be given by your examiner in the scenario. Unfair advertising, pricing of goods in rural areas, and taxation, tax evasion. Remember, these three are unethical business practices, and we also have to learn how the above unethical business practices are of a challenge or can pose a challenge to the business, meaning how unfair advertising can be of a challenge to the business, or how pricing of goods in rural areas can pose a challenge to the business, and how tax evasion or the issues of tax can be of a challenge to the business. Remember, these three are what we call unethical business practices. But you must also be able to know unprofessional business practices that will be given from the scenarios. So what are unprofessional business practices? We have sexual harassment, we have unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources, and then we also have abuse of work time. So meaning these are unprofessional business practices that are mostly committed by employees in the workplace, and explain how the above unprofessional business practices would also be posing a challenge to the business. How do they become of a challenge to the business? And remember, because you are a business studies learner, your job does not only end with identification of challenges. It goes beyond identification, because now after you have identified the challenges that are posed by those unethical as well as unprofessional business challenges, business practices, you must now be able to say, how can business deal with this? How can business be able to deal with this unethical business practices and unprofessional business practices that we have mentioned? So it is important for you to know in your preparation, in terms of understanding the challenges, you must also as a strategist be able now to say, how do I solve, how do I deal with these challenges to ensure that I as a business, I run an ethical and a professional workplace or a business. So you must be able now at the end to be able to suggest recommendations for the challenges that you would have identified from the unprofessional as well as unethical business practices by businesses. And your creative thinking and problem solving, what is it that you need to know? Remember also, this topic, you have dealt with it from grade 10, and you know not much has changed in terms of the aspects that are covered in the topic. So it has been a topic that you dealt with grade 10, you went through it in your grade 11, and you are now currently busy with it in grade 12. So meaning as a learner, you are expected to also now be well conversant and with this topic, and you must be able to excel, because we have dealt with it for a period of 3 years now. You must be able to elaborate on the meaning of problem solving and decision making. You must be able to differentiate, explain or distinguish between problem solving and decision making. You must be able to identify or outline, explain or discuss the problem solving steps, and then apply the problem solving steps from given scenario. So your discussion or your naming or explaining of the problem solving steps is not enough, because now you may be required by the examiner to apply them from the context of the scenario that will be given. So you must be able now to say, if a scenario is given and I have to now apply the steps, you must be well conversant. Your understanding of the steps would, meaning that would be your theory, would be able to assist you in terms of applying that theory to make it practical in the scenario. So it is important that you understand that you just don't stop with identifying and knowing those steps, but you must understand that you go beyond that, where you'll be expected now to apply those steps from the scenarios. You must identify and name the problem solving techniques that will also be given from the scenarios. So remember, business studies candidate and learner, that scenarios are given to ensure that the theory that you have learned in your class is now made alive, because scenarios are there to assist you in terms of application. So you must remember, when you study, you study with understanding, so that now you can link what you have learned in your classes as you study with what would be in the scenario, and you make now your business studies content real and alive through application. So it is important for you to know that. And then you must now be able to explain or advise how these different problem solving techniques can be applied. Remember, you identify them, and the problem solving techniques have been dealt with from your grade 10. But if you look at your examination guideline now, they have been reduced to 4 problem solving techniques. You have your Delphi, you have your force field analysis, you have your brainstorming, and your nominal group technique. So you need to know them, be able to explain them. So even though the examination guideline does not indicate that you have to explain or be able to define what these problem solving techniques are, you will not be able to identify them from the scenario. You cannot also be able to advise businesses on how to apply them, meaning the application of these steps, if you don't know what they are, because the application of these steps is built into the definition. So you must understand the definition of each and every problem solving techniques for you to be able to apply them. And then you must be able to discuss, evaluate, or analyze the impact, meaning that will be your positives and negatives of the problem solving techniques that we have just mentioned. Remember, we have your force field, you have your Delphi, we have your brainstorming, and you have your nominal group techniques. So work with them, know what they are, be able to identify them from scenarios, understand the application, meaning those processes that are followed by businesses when they apply, when they use these problem solving techniques. And also you must understand the impact of these problem solving techniques for the business, the negatives as well as the positives. And then the last part of creative thinking and problem solving would be now referring specifically to your creative thinking. If you look at this topic, a lot of work that you need to cover is on problem solving. With creative thinking, you need to know what creative thinking is. You must understand the benefits or advantages of creative thinking in the workplace. And then you must, be able to recommend ways businesses can create an environment that stimulates creative or promotes creative thinking. So those are the aspects of work that you need to cover in terms of creative thinking. And also for problem solving, I have indicated what you need to do in terms of ensuring thorough preparation. And then social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and your corporate social investment, that is your SR, CSR, and CSI. Social responsibility, the meaning, you need to know. You need to be able to explain the relationship between social responsibility and triple bottom line, and be able to suggest ways in which a business project can contribute towards the community. And then you must be able to know the 4 main socioeconomic issues, and you must be able to identify them from scenarios. That will be your HIV/AIDS, your unemployment, and your poverty. And you must be able to suggest now how a business can deal with the above mentioned socioeconomic issues. Remember, the quest to overcome the negative impact of these socioeconomic issues is embedded in the social responsibility or corporate social responsibility of the business. And also, you must be able to suggest ways in which businesses can contribute time and effort in improving the well-being of employees and communities. And then the corporate social responsibility and the CSI. The nicest part of these two is that they share the impact with the two. You will find now that whatever impact you have learned from social responsibility, you can also apply with your corporate social investment. So I'm just going to touch on the few aspects that you need to prepare as far as these two are concerned. You must be able to elaborate on the meaning of CSR, explain the purpose, outline the components of CSR, environment. The other example is ethical corporate social investment, health and safety. And then you must also identify CSR programs that will be given by the examiner in the scenarios. And then also evaluate or analyze the positives and negatives of CSR. And then on businesses and communities. So it is important to note that there is a negative and positive impact on communities and negative and positive impact on businesses. So be able to separate the two. Do not confuse them. Read your questions carefully so that you can understand what you are required to do, whether you are required to respond in terms of communities or in terms of businesses. With corporate social investment, you must know the meaning, you must be able to know the purpose of CSI and be able to know the focus area. Remember, with CSR, we have to learn the components. With CSI, we need those focus areas. And then we must also now be able to know the differences between CSR and CSI, and also the impact of CSI on businesses and communities. So that is very important. Be able to separate business impact from community impact and get your facts right when you have to answer this question, because it's normally a straightforward type of a question that requires you to be able to be careful. But if you give the relevant response, then you are able to score marks. And then the other, that will be your fourth topic now, human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues. You must know and be able to name the human rights issues in the workplace. For instance, privacy, dignity, equity, freedom of speech and expression, information, safety, security, and protection of life. Those are the human rights that are found in each and every business or the workplace. And you must also be able now to identify those human rights from the scenarios that will be given. And we must also be able to recommend ways in which businesses could deal with these human rights. So once you have been able to identify them, also be able to say how can a business be able to ensure that they address this and deal with these human rights. And then you must know the economic rights of employees, you must know the social rights of employees, and then you must be able to know again how business could promote social rights and cultural rights in the workplace. And then be able now to explain the implication of equality, respect, and dignity on businesses. You must also know the diversity issues of diversity as far as inclusivity is concerned. Remember, with inclusivity, we focus on diversity, because it is through diversity in the workplace that you can be able to achieve inclusivity. So we have human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues as a topic, but we give special reference to diversity in our discussion. Elaborate on the meaning of diversity, name the diversity issues that you will see from the scenarios, and you are also required to suggest ways in which businesses could deal with the diversity issues that could be mentioned in the scenarios, and also discuss the benefits of diversity in the workplace. So it is through diversity that we can be able to deal with inclusivity. And then team performance will be our last topic as far as the roles are concerned. What aspects of work are we supposed to cover as far as team performance is concerned? Oh, learners, I did not touch on environmental issues. So let us quickly touch on environmental issues before we proceed to team performance. What aspects of work are we supposed to cover as far as environmental issues are concerned? You must be able to explain the responsibility of employers in promoting human health and safety in the workplace. The responsibility of employers, you must be able to discuss the roles of health and safety representatives in protecting their workplace environment. You must be able to identify the roles of health and safety representatives that would be given from scenarios, and you must be able to explain the responsibility of workers in promoting health and safety in the workplace. Remember, the first bullet indicated employers' responsibility. Now we also have to know the responsibility of workers in terms of ensuring or promoting human health and safety in the workplace. You must also be able to identify responsibility of workers or responsibilities of employers in promoting human health and safety when scenarios are given in the paper. So, and then you must be able to suggest strategies businesses may use now to protect the environment and human health. And then you must be in a position as a learner to assess a venture in terms of human rights, in terms of inclusivity, and environmental issues. For instance, using surveys and interviews. So this last bullet of the examination is usually used when we do our extended tasks, such as our projects or assignment. So for your for examination purposes, you will be required to recommend strategies and businesses may use to protect environment and human health. And that would be concluding your human rights and inclusivity and environmental issues preparation. The last part would be the team performance. So meaning we would have, looked at all aspects of work that we are supposed to cover as far as the two topics are concerned. Earlier I indicated that do not be selective in your preparation. Ensure thorough coverage of the topics that you would be deciding on. You will see as we proceed with the scope what we mean in terms of the decisions that you are supposed to make as a learner. Team performance, assessment, and conflict management. What is it that we are supposed to know? You must be able to discuss the criteria, explain or outline for successful team performance. You must be able to identify the criteria, for instance, interpersonal attitudes and behavior, shared values from the scenarios that could be given from the examination question paper. You must be able to explain or discuss the characteristics of successful teams, team performance, and you must know the stages of team development. Remember, there are 5 stages of team development. You have your forming, your storming, your norming, your performing, and your adjourning. You must be able to explain those stages. So your mastery of the stages of team development does not only end in terms of you being able to name them, but you must be able to discuss them and understand what the forming stage is, what the storming stage is, all the 5 stages. So you must go through the all those stages in terms of knowing how many they are and what they are, but be able to describe or discuss them. And you must also be able to describe or elaborate on the importance of team dynamics. Remember, in your grade 11, you did different types of theories relating to team dynamics. Now, instead of focusing on each and every theory, what we are required to do is to elaborate on the importance of the team dynamic theories in terms of improving team performance. Take, for instance, remember, last year the focus was on the roles that could be performed by people within the team. Remember that for a team to be balanced, it has to comprise of different people that have different abilities. So if you work on the importance of those team dynamics, you'll be touching on aspects such as allocating tasks according to the abilities or the roles of the different members of the team. And we must also, as we prepare our team performance, be able to deal with conflict resolution. Remember, there is no way that we can bring a group of people together and they work together in harmony without going through a phase of conflict. So it is important to understand now that as we work together as a team, we must also understand that conflict is bound to happen. We are it is inevitable that a conflict will take place, but it is also important for us to understand that we need to deal with that conflict so that we can be able to achieve the common goal that has brought us together. So conflict resolution process is one of the aspects of work that we are supposed to cover when we prepare conflict management. We must know and be able to discuss the causes of conflict in the workplace, and we must also be able to identify the causes of conflicts from the scenarios, and we also be able to advise business on how they should handle conflict in their workplace. So that would be your conflict resolution. And then the last part of team performance would be dealing with grievances as well as difficult personalities. One thing that also I would like to touch on very importantly would be that learners tend to confuse conflict management with a grievance procedure. So go through the two and be able to know the differences between them so that you can be able to know if the examiner requires a conflict management process, what is required of you to do, and when you are required to discuss them a grievance procedure, what is it that you need to do. So you must be able to differentiate between what a grievance and what conflict is. You must be able to discuss the correct processes to deal with grievances in the workplace, and you must be able to identify or name the following difficult people or difficult personalities that will be given from scenarios: complainer, a person that is indecisive, an over-agreeer, a negative person, an expert, or sometimes a quiet person. Those are different types of difficult people that managers in businesses would have at some point to deal with. So you must now be able to say how a business or managers can be able to, or team leaders can be able to deal with such difficult people. meaning you must recommend ways in which businesses can deal with the difficult people that we have mentioned, or difficult personalities, and also be able to suggest ways in which business can deal with difficult employees in the workplace. So it is also now again important for you to note that when you deal with a difficult personality or difficult person, what normally would happen in the examination paper, the examiner would give you the type of personality that you must be able to respond to. So when a type of personality is given in the question paper, it is important for you to note that the recommendation or the suggestion that you are going to put forward should, speak directly to the type of personality that is mentioned. So if the examiner requires you to suggest how a business can deal with a complainer, you cannot just maybe retrieve the information that you have learned on a quiet person. The suggestion that you have to deal with a complainer should be addressing the question directly. And when the examiner says you must suggest ways in which businesses can deal with difficult employees, do you see now here it is open? It's not specific. It does not mention the type of personality that you need to deal with. So it means you would have now to use those suggestions that are given in terms of dealing with difficult people in the business. But when a personality is given, please link it to them a suggestion on how you can deal with it. They have to be direct. The suggestions have to be direct in solving or dealing with a particular personality that is mentioned. So that wraps up our overview of the two topics that we are supposed to prepare. And remember, the essays can come from any of the two of the 5 topics per of the 5 subtopics per topic. Remember, leadership and management, and investment opportunities, insurance forms of ownership, presentation, and data response. That will be essays from any of the above. Or sometimes the examiner may decide to combine different subtopics to make a one essay type question. The same with the roles. Any of the 5 subtopics that we have mentioned, or a combination of the topics, could be used in terms of an essay type question where you would be required to respond. And now let us refresh and remember we are writing on the 25th of November from 9 o'clock up to 11 o'clock. It's a 2-hour paper. And how is the structure of the question looking like? Remember, it's a question out of 150 marks, and it comprises of 2 topics. And you have your section A as a compulsory section. So all of us, regardless of the choice of topic that you would be working on, all candidates are expected to answer section A, which is made up of 30 marks. So it's made up of objective questions, multiple choices, choice type of questions, or sometimes you will be expected to match the columns. And then the section B is a choice now section. Remember, section A is a compulsory section, but section B is a choice question, where learners would be expected to choose 2 from 3 questions that would be in that section. You have your direct questions, you have your scenarios, you have your case studies there, and each question in section B would be made up of 40 marks each. So you are expected now to choose 2 questions there. That will be your 80 marks. Your section C, again, is also a choice question, meaning you have 2 essays and out of those 2 essays, you are required to choose one. So you are going to choose one essay, either from the ventures or from the roles, and then you will be writing one essay out of 40 marks. So it's your 40 marks in your essay, it's your 80 marks in your section B, 2 questions, and it's your compulsory section A question out of 30 marks. So making the total of the entire paper, that is your paper 2, 150 marks, with a duration of 2 hours. So it is important that you distribute your time accordingly to ensure that you don't run out of time. Planning and organization would be extremely important, because when you have planned your work well, you'll be able to save time. So a well-planned work schedule or timetable for the days that are left would be important, because I think now we are doing what we call focus studying, and it is important to focus all your effort in making sure that you master the paper, and you are able to ensure that you achieve. Let us continue with the structure still. Your section A, as I have already indicated, would have your ventures and your roles. Those are compulsory. It's a compulsory section that you have to write on. Your section B has 3 questions. That will be your ventures. You will have your special 40 marks on the roles, and then question 4 is your miscellaneous question, which is made up of the ventures as well as the business roles. And you have your section C, which is made up of your ventures, and question 6, which is made up of your business roles. So that is how your questions will be distributed in the question paper. So if you look at the distribution of questions in your question paper, you will see that you need to know both topics for your question 1. That is compulsory. But if you look at your section B, you can choose topics here. You have question 2, 40 marks for your ventures. You have question 3, 40 marks for your roles, and you have question 4 as a combination of ventures and roles. And your section C again enables you to choose one of the topics. Either you go for ventures or you go for business roles. Therefore, it's easy to pass because of the choice that you have in your section B and section C. But it is important to note that both topics are equally important. You cannot fully and wholly focus on one topic and not do the other topic, because then you will find your section A difficult for you, which may result in a loss of 30 marks. So it is important that you deal with the 2 topics, but at the end of the day, you must be able to say which of the 2 topics would I master, which of the 2 topics would I would be focusing on to ensure that I pass and reach my target. Let us proceed with a commonly assessed topic. That would be the second part of the work that we need to look at today. Remember, we started with ventures, and I sort of indicated the different types of topics that we need to deal with in the ventures as far as the examination guideline is concerned. And I sort of read out the examination guideline for you so that you can be able to note if you are dealing with management and leadership, what aspects of work are you supposed to cover. So one of the commonly assessed topics in leadership and management would be your distinction, or the examiner might ask you to differentiate or distinguish between leadership and management, and what is it that you need to know. I'm only going to touch on a few that are appearing on your screen now, because there is a lot of work that I would like us to touch on today. Management. Remember, a manager is a person that becomes a manager because of the position that he is appointed to. He becomes a manager by virtue of the qualifications, the experience and the skills that he has. So the owners of the business would appoint the person because they think that the person would be able to manage the business successfully. Whereas a leader is a person that a person that is born with those innate characteristics or those leadership skills that are instinctive, and a leader can be able to lead people without having assumed a position of power or position of authority. Hence, we are going to distinguish between the two by saying that management guides human behavior, whereas leadership influences human behavior. Guiding human behavior through instructions, because you have authority over these people, you are going to tell them and instruct them in terms of the task that they are supposed to undertake. Remember, you were appointed because now you need to achieve a particular vision that the owners of the business have set out. Hence, we are going to say the management is task-oriented, whereas leadership is people-oriented, because the leadership is about influencing people. You communicate through interacting with people. You have this charisma that when you speak to people, you are able to inspire them, you are able to motivate them to willingly do a task or to willingly perform, and you are able to inspire your staff to trust and work with one another and support each other. So if you look at the two, leadership as well as management, you will see that with management, it's more of controlled. It's more of giving instruction, because now you were appointed, you are given authority over the people, and you are now also going to exercise authority over these people for them to be able to perform. So as a commonly assessed topic, please, as you prepare your leadership and management, make sure that you work on this aspect. And it is also important to note that with leadership and management, leadership styles and theories, but also one commonly assessed question would be the role of personal attitude in successful leadership. So make sure that you work with them so that you can be able to master this particular topic. And another commonly assessed topic with regards to management and leadership would be a discussion on the situational leadership theory. Remember, we have the leadership styles that would be autocratic, democratic, but with the theories, situational leadership theory is a theory that has been appearing previously in many question papers. So it is important for learners to go through it so that you can be able to discuss situational and all the other theories that are mentioned in your examination guideline. Do not just go and work on the situational leadership theory and do not look at other theories. It's just a commonly assessed topic, but remember, there are three other theories that needs to be looked at. Different leadership characteristics are needed for different situations. Remember, a situational leadership theories indicates that a leader would be, guided by the situation at hand. The type of leadership style that will be assumed by the leader at that time is dependent on the situation at hand. So the task that they are supposed to undertake or the situation will dictate the style that will be applied by the leader in order to ensure success. So you must go through this situational theory, you must go through your leaders and followers, you must go through your transformational and transitional. Remember, transformational and transitional are related because they are both dealing with change. And do not confuse these two theories, transformational, transitional, with transactional. Transactional is a leadership style. Transformational and transitional are leadership theories. And then you must also now be able to discuss the role of personal attitude in successful leadership. Let us continue with the commonly assessed topics. The second part would be your securities investments. And then, Johannesburg Securities Exchange, normally would be the first question that would be asked when or assessed when dealing with securities. So it is important because it has been appearing for a number of times in different question papers, whether it's national papers or it's provincial papers. But it is important for learners to note that you cannot study your securities without including a preparation in Johannesburg Securities Exchange. So what aspects of work are you supposed to work on? I'll just mention a few. That it gives opportunities to financial institutions such as insurance companies to invest in their funds in shares. It serves also as a barometer or indicator of economic conditions in South Africa. Remember, when we look at the performance of different companies in the Johannesburg Securities of Exchange, we are able to be to know if our economy in South Africa is doing well or not. If our businesses are not doing well, as listed on the Johannesburg Securities Exchange, it indicates to us that economically South Africa is not doing well. So it also keeps investors informed on the share prices by publishing the share prices daily. Remember, every day when you look at the newspapers or news on TV or you listen to them on radio, they will always give you indications and also give investors and those people that are interested in investing about the performance of different companies, also about the share prices for each and every company, so that we can be able to assess if that could be the type of investment that you would like to make in a particular company. It also acts as a link between investors and public companies. It is also again here important for learners to know that because most learners are saying that the Johannesburg Security Exchange sells shares to the members of the public. Remember, it just provides a platform for the sale and the buying of shares, but it does not sell. So it is important to know that you would not be able to score marks if you are going to indicate that it sells shares of different companies. It does not. So we'll go through the different functions of the stock securities exchange and be able to answer any question in that regard. It's also one of those topics that are commonly assessed as far as the ventures are concerned. And then also with regards to forms of ownership, remember from grade 10 you have learned your characteristics, you have identified, you have learned your characteristics, your advantages and disadvantages. But remember, now this year we are supposed to do our evaluation. So we must take everything that we have learned the previous years and apply it in our grade 12 a year, so that we can be able to pass. You must, the example of the question that we can come across would be: advise the business on how the following factor could contribute to the success and or failure of partnership. Which factor? Management. So we are supposed now to look at management and say, what are the success factors as far as management is concerned, and failure as far as management is concerned. So remember, for each and every form of ownership, you should and you must be able to do this particular evaluation. The success of management would be that, remember, we are dealing with partnership. Partners should be actively involved in the management. And because they are all involved, they may use the ideas of other partners to ensure success of the business. So we come together, we are all actively involved, we share ideas, and that would lead to the success of the business. And then also another success factor would be that they have access to each other's expertise. Remember, each and every partner in the business has his own abilities. They bring along different skills, and they bring along with them expertise from different angles. So when we come together as partners, and you know, when decisions are supposed to be made, especially difficult decisions, we rely on one another's knowledge, we rely on each other's expertise, so that we can be able at the end to come up with the best decision that is going to benefit the business and be able to run our partnership to success. But then what could be the failure factors of management as far as partnership is concerned? Decision making can be time consuming. Remember, you are referring to more than one person, and each and every time when decisions have to be made, as partners, we are supposed to be in agreement. So it's going to take us time to discuss. Remember, we are going to argue our points up to a point where we come to an agreement. So those decisions can consume a lot of time, and you find that some management tasks may be neglected by other partners, and because there is a team of us, there is a number of people that are running this business, others may leave a task to others to complete and would play no part in terms of ensuring the success of the business. So sometimes you may find others neglecting the work that they are supposed to do and leaving the work for others to complete, which may overwork and which may result in the partnership not being successful. Another commonly assessed question would be with regard to the business roles, and the topic creative thinking and problem solving. So what is it that we need to know here? Remember, when I read out the examination guideline to you, I indicated that you must be able to differentiate between decision making and problem solving. So what is decision making, and how do you differentiate it from problem solving? Remember, decision making is often done by one person, and this person is a member of senior management. So these are the details that you are supposed to note as far as your differences are concerned. Who makes a decision alone, or we may refer to it, who makes it authoritarian, meaning he decides alone on the decision that needs to be taken. Whereas problem solving, it's where problems are solved by a group. We use a group here, or a team, or sometimes an individual team member is delegated with the responsibility of solving a problem on behalf of the team. With decision making, various alternatives are considered before deciding on the best one. note the differences here, candidates. With problem solving, alternative solutions are generated and critically evaluated. We consider with decision making the different alternative bits before deciding on the best one, but with problem solving we identify and we critically evaluate those solutions, so that we can eventually arrive at a solution that would be, suitable for the type of problem that we are having. It is a problem solve is part of problem solving cycle. Remember, the problem solving cycle includes also decision making, because now decisions need to be taken on each step. Whereas problem solving is the process of analyzing a situation to identify strategies in order to bring about change. So that would be expected of you when you have to answer a question on the differences between problem solving and decision making. And then another question that has been assessed in the past would be the application of the Delphi technique to solve a business. The question would read as follows: explain how businesses could apply the Delphi technique to solve their business problems. So what is it that a business must do? It must invite a panel of experts to research the complaints. So do you see here, it's the application, it's not the impact. Do not make the mistake of confusing the impact with the application of all the problem solving techniques. Remember, with Delphi, experts are used. Learners may make the mistake of mentioning workers when dealing with Delphi. There is no part of Delphi that requires you to mention workers, because the business use the expert knowledge from the experts that they would have identified. So experts do not have to be in one place. That is another thing that you need to note. They will be contacted individually. The business will design a questionnaire, and the questionnaire will consist of questions on how to improve the quality of their products. So meaning the type of questions that they ask should be able to assist in terms of helping the business to improve the quality of the product. After they have designed and developed the questionnaire, they must now request the panel to respond individually to the questionnaire, and then the business would then summarize the responses and give a feedback on how the experts responded, because the most important thing that the business would want here is for all experts to be in agreement in terms of the responses that they would have given. Remember, they are in separate places and they don't even know that who is participating in the research. But at the end, the business would expect them to sort of, agree on the responses. So for as long as the experts do not agree, the business would, send the feedback report as well as a second set of questions, until the best solution is or until all the experts have reached a consensus, meaning they have reached an agreement on how or on the outcome of the research. The other topic would be the procedure to deal with grievance. Remember, I alluded to this earlier when I dealt with team performance and conflict management. I indicated that learners tend to confuse the grievance procedure as well as conflict management. So what is it that you need to write, or how are you expected to respond when you come across such a question? The question would be: advise the business on the correct procedure to deal with a grievance. The employee should verbally state his or her problem to the supervisor, who will listen, investigate the problem, and suggest solution. Remember, the supervisor is supposed to, respond to the problem that the employee has indicated verbally within a period of 3 to 5 days. So if the employee is not satisfied with the suggested solution from the supervisor, then he may or she may submit a written formal complaint, and then it's where the employee would now be escalating the problem to the second level or the next level of management, because now the immediate supervisor was unable to assist. So whenever the employee is not getting the responses that satisfy him, then the employee can take every time the problem or the written complaint to the next level until he has exhausted all the avenues within the business. If the employee is able to resolve the business the problems or the complaint within the business, then that is good. It means the grievance will be solved. But then if the employee is not satisfied with all processes that have taken place within the business, and then the employee is allowed by the Labor Relations Act to declare a dispute, and then the case would be referred for mediation to the CCMA or Labor Court, and also the Labor Appeals Court, because every time when the employee is not satisfied, then the case is escalated up to the point where now it reaches the Labor Appeals Court. And then any other relevant answer that is related to the correct procedure for dealing with grievance would be acceptable as long as it is relevant. And then another topic that would be commonly assessed would appear or would have appeared in numerous papers in the past is suggest practical ways that a business could introduce or deal with unethical business practices. How a business could deal with unethical business practices. Remember, when I dealt with the examination guideline earlier, I indicated that with ethics and professionalism, you will have unethical business practices, you will also have unprofessional business practices. And now, I said most importantly, you would need to know what those unethical business practices are, but also you would have to know how the business could deal with those, because you cannot only be able to identify the challenge that is posed to the business without coming up with a solution or a way to deal with that particular practice or behavior or challenge. In terms of the abuse of work time, management should speak directly to those employees who abuse work time. Management should not generalize. They should speak directly to those people that abuse work time. They can also develop a code of conduct or code of ethics, and that code of conduct should contain clear rules about the abuse of work time. So employees must understand what abuse of work time entails, and they must understand the rules governing them abuse of work time. The business should also ensure that code of ethics or code of conduct is signed by all employees, so that they are clear and aware of the contents of this code of conduct. It is important for businesses, after having drawn up or developed the policies and code of conduct, communicate that to employees so that they are aware, they know when a particular action would be regarded as a misconduct. The structure of working hours should be in such a way that employees have free time or flexible time, so that they can be able to do or carry on or be able to engage in their personal matters. The business can also be able to create a culture of responsibility, so that employees understand and know that they are responsible for everything that needs to be achieved in the business. The other commonly assessed topic would be the presentation. What is it that we need to know? Remember, I indicated that we have the before, we have the during, and we have the after the presentation. So you may come across a question that requires you to explain the factors that the presenter should be able to consider during a presentation. Do not confuse during with before or after. During means in session. Now the presenter is presenting as I am doing now. What are those factors that you need to consider? You must establish credibility by introducing yourself as the presenter at the beginning or at the start. You must show the important information first. You must make the purpose of the presentation clear at the start of the presentation. That is why I indicated to you that the reason why I am here is for us to prepare for paper 2 that will be written on Wednesday. You must also use suitable section titles and bullets to make your presentation attractive to the people that you will be your audience. There are a number of factors that a presenter should consider. Avoid hiding behind the equipment when presenting. You must also make eye contact with your audience. You must be audible, because it is important for people that came to listen to you. They must now be able to hear you. They cannot come to a presentation and not hear you. So how now do we approach our essays? Remember, we gave an outline, we gave the structure of the paper. We also now touched on different questions that have been, appearing and reappearing in previous question papers. Now let us look at the approach to answering an essay type question. Many learners struggle with essay writing, and they lose a lot of marks in that regard. So let us try to quickly break it down so that you have understanding of the aspects of work that you need to cover as far as the essay is concerned. You must read and understand the question. You analyze the question to find out exactly what is wanted. And with business studies, it is important to note that what is required of you would always be indicated in the bullets that appear just underneath the scenario that will be given. So you must analyze the question, read it carefully, understand what it means. You must read the question again and establish the context. You must establish what is it, what relevant information am I supposed to bring into my discussion when answering this question. You must break the question up into different parts, so that you can be able to know what instructions are there, identify the verbs, so that you can know how to answer the type of response that you are supposed to give as far as the question is concerned. You must also be able to identify the challenges that are in the task and be able to say, these are the possible responses to the challenges that I have been given. And then you must sequence your responses. It is important to sequence because it not only helps you in terms of thought organization, but it also makes easier for the people that are marking to mark your script, and that you don't lose marks in that regard. The step 2 again is to note the layout of the question. when answering the question, essay type question. You must know that there is an introduction. You cannot write an essay without an introduction. And remember, introduction should be written. You write the words introduction, you underline. And then underneath the underlined introduction, you give a brief statement of the content that you are required to consider. And here, learners or candidates, please do not include any piece of information from the scenario that will be given. Find any relevant information relating to the topic, but that is not a part of the scenario that is given, because we are going to mark it as a repeat, and then you are going to lose marks for facts. And then sentences, 2 for the introduction, for 2 marks, because you are going to score 1 mark for each sentence. And then the body of your essay should have the main factual content. And remember, this content is informed by the 4 bullets that would be appearing in your question paper. So paragraph your questions, and then give your body subheadings. It is advisable to use the 4 bullets as your subheadings, because it would help you in terms of scoring marks again for your marks on analysis. And then the conclusion, 2 marks, 1 sentence. Remember, the introduction, 2 marks, 2 sentences. Don't write paragraphs here. It's just 2 marks, 2 sentences. 1 sentence for the conclusion. So it's a brief evaluation, meaning here now with the conclusion, you are given an opportunity to draw your points together, and you are also given an opportunity to give own opinion or own recommendation on the topic or aspects that you have discussed in your essay. And it is going to be straight 2 marks at the end. Mind map is important. Many learners think that we only use mind map when we answer our language essays, but it is also used in business studies because it helps to ensure thought organization. It also helps you in terms of making sure that you are going to include all the aspects of work that you are supposed to cover per bullet. So draw a circle in the middle with the key idea, and then place those words around the circle, those concepts that you are supposed to work on. Draw lines to connect the topic and the keywords, and then you must list headings as well as subheadings, and fill in information under the subheadings. So you also use arrows to show the relationships or how those subheadings and information that you have included in your mind map is linking to one another. You organize and group relevant ideas together to design a suitable answer. So once you have your mind map, it assists you, because you are not going now to forget anything that you are supposed to include in your discussion, because the mind map you are going to refer to, and that will now guide your discussion. It is important to remember to paragraph your essay. It is important to remember to include diagrams where appropriate. So when it is not necessary, you don't have to. Where you are required to, you must include them. And you include them where appropriate, not just to draw the diagram, but you must refer to it so that we find its relevance to the content that you have discussed. And then make sure that you allocate your time effectively between the 2 parts. Remember, you have your section B, and then you have your 4 bullets essay, and you also have your introduction and your conclusion. So you must make sure that every question paper would have the recommended time allocation for you. So you must always take that into consideration, so that you don't find yourself spending too much time on one aspect and run out of time to ensure full coverage of the question paper. Answer in full sentences, even when you are writing in point form. Practice your essays. Practice. 8 marks from the inside of the question paper of the essay. And it is normally the 8 marks that you need to collect as a learner, because you can get 2 marks for the layout. That will be for your introduction, and then and your conclusion. You write your introduction. Underneath the written introduction, you underline, and then you write 2 sentences relating to the topic that you are going to be discussing. And at the end, you are going to write the word conclusion and 1 sentence where you wrap up the whole essay, that by giving own opinion or recommendation, or where you will now draw all the points that you have discussed together. It must, be a very convincing and strong conclusion, because the teacher cannot allocate 1 mark here. It's 2 marks or nothing. So make sure that you get those 2 marks for facts, and then 2 marks for the layout. Analysis and interpretation. Analysis, you also get 2 marks. Your 2 marks would be made up of your ability to break down the question, because here we want to see your understanding of what was asked. Do you understand what the examiner required from you? So how do you show understanding? By breaking all the questions down. And my recommendation would be, take the bullets down and ensure that you form your subheadings from the bullets. It will always be 4 bullets. So those 4 bullets, use them and have your parts of the work broken but also brought together, because you would have ensured that you discuss each and every aspect as required by the examiner. So you will get 2 marks. First mark, 1 mark for having addressed all the 4 bullets in your question paper as required. And the other 1 mark would be for scoring your facts above 16 marks. So you can get your 2 marks for analysis and interpretation of the question. And then synthesis is always marked negatively. When we start marking your question, you assume that you are going to discuss only what was asked, meaning your relevant points. So we are assuming as markers that you are going to discuss within the context of the questions asked. So whenever we see that you have included in your discussion aspects that are irrelevant to the question, then we subtract the marks. Then we are going to take 1 mark and mark with a negative S. So it is important that when you have analyzed and interpreted your questions carefully, ensure that you include in your discussion the aspects or the content that is relevant to the questions. You must ask yourself, what parts of the question are you supposed to include in the answer that you are going to give? Are there some decisions that you have to make from a combination of relevant points? So it is important to ensure relevance to the context as well as to the questions asked when you are discussing. Originality, most learners would score 38 and then not get these 2 marks. Originality means that in your discussion, you must be able to use relevant examples, relevant information, current trends and developments to make your your learning alive and relevant by including the current. If you read your news, newspapers, you include those examples that are relevant to the topic that you are discussing. So it is important here to know that you will not score marks for originality if you are going to include in your discussion examples from the scenario, even examples from the textbooks or the sources that you will be given. It has to be original. It has to come from you through your knowledge of the current trends. That will be what we call your lasso. It's 8 marks, and then that is how the 8 marks for your insight is distributed. And then here is an approach or the question that you can use in terms of preparing yourself together with all the other questions that you can use when you prepare for your any question. But here a special reference is given to investments. Mario, a financial consultant, made a presentation on ordinary and preference shares. The presentation also addressed factors that need to be considered when making investment decisions. Mario received negative feedback from the audience on his presentation. I think one thing that you need to note is that it's a combination of the two topics here. And this question was in May-June question paper of 2019. What was expected of the responses? You were supposed now, as the instruction indicates, write an essay on investment and presentation in which you include the following aspects: differentiate between ordinary and preference shares, discuss the following factors that must be considered when making investment decisions. So meaning a risk taxation investment period. Explain to Mario the factors that he should consider during a presentation, and recommend ways in which Mario can improve on his next presentation. So those are the 4 bullets, and these are the bullets that you can use to ensure that you are relevant, but that you have also covered all the questions that the examiner requires you to cover. Now, how do you do your mind map? There is the main topic, would be your investment and presentation. But then, what were the instructions? The first instruction was for you to differentiate between ordinary and preference shares, discuss the risk taxation and investment period as factors to consider when making investment decision. Explain the factors that must be considered during a presentation, and then we'll recommend ways to improve on the next presentation. So it when you have done this, it assists in terms of organizing your thoughts. You know where you are supposed to base now your discussion. These are suggestions for the introduction that you may write. Shares, because you have your investments there. You also have feedback enables the presenter to improve on his next or her next presentation because of the combination of the questions of the topic. It allows you in your presentation to also use a combination of the facts when you write your introduction. And how would your conclusion look like? Remember, it's 2 marks, whereas the introduction is 1 mark perfect, with conclusion is 1 sentence, 2 full marks. Shares can be sold to others for a higher price than it was purchased for. A business that is managed successfully will make a number of investments over a period of time. So that could be the conclusion that you use for your the sentences that you use for your conclusion with regards to investment. But with regards to the presentation, because I have indicated it's a choice of it's a combination of the 2 topics here. A good presentation promotes the image of the business. Presentation of a business information is one of the key aspects in communicating with stakeholders or various stakeholders in our business. So how are marks broken down for our essay type questions? I've already indicated you have your 2 marks for introduction, You have your 12 marks for preference shares, differences between preference shares and ordinary shares. So if you calculate the total mark here, you have your 12 marks for your factors to be considered. That will be your 24. You have factors to be considered during the presentation. It's now 36. Ways to improve on the next presentation. It's 46. It's 10, 22, 32, 34, 44, 46. And then it's 2 marks for your introduction and your 2 marks for your conclusion. But these marks, the facts, are supposed now to be, all these marks are supposed to be maxed to a maximum of 32. And then 32 plus the 8 for layout, for analysis and interpretation, for synthesis and originality. Remember, I have also indicated this to you earlier. Will give you a total of 40 marks. So candidates, this is an opportunity for you to score a lot of marks, because the marks here are going to be you are marked out of a total of, many times it's 50, and then max to 32. So you cannot score beyond 32. So you can find the learners scoring 50, learners scoring 40 here, but at the end we have to take them down and reduce and max them up to a maximum of 40. So that is how your marks are allocated as far as your essays are concerned. We have prepared and worked on all aspects of work that you need to cover. So it is important to consider, sit back, look at your work, analyze, and as a business studies learner, you must now be knowing your weaknesses. You must know your strong points, and work in such a way that at the end this paper is going to also be the type of paper that is going to give you the type of level that have from the beginning of the year wanted to achieve for your business studies paper in 2020. Work smart, choose smart, and achieve. In conclusion, soon, when all is well, you are going to look back on this period of your life and be glad that you never gave up. So fight with everything that you have, and with the aim of achieving the targets that you have set for yourself. I wish you well, and I hope that you achieve what you wanted to achieve when 2020 began. Good luck and the best for your future. Bye.